All right. So, as I like to say with these things, as long as everything is working the way that it should be working, we are now live. So, hello and welcome to everyone who is watching the Written Melanin channel, wherever this day may have found you. I'm so glad that you are here. My name is Chelsea, and I write books about Black girls who aren't all that nice. And I'm here with the one, the only, the amazing Audra Russell. And we are here to bring some melanin to your pages. And I am
All right.
pretty sure I'm on the verge of getting sick. I'm trying to prevent it. So if you hear me mute my mic randomly, it's just so that I don't blow your ears out trying to like cough into the mic. So
Funny, because I woke up with a little bit of a scratchy throat this morning.
it comes out of nowhere and I'm just like, oh, this is fun. This is exciting. So anyway, we're gonna give everybody a couple minutes to get in here to be great and thrive and all that good stuff. So shout out to Ash, who's already in the chat. So is Darian, Roussel, and Ben. All of you guys are here. Thank you. I hope you guys are having a good morning. This conversation should be fun.
Oh boy.
Should be fun. Mostly because if you guys are part of the after chat, which if you're not, I suggest you join the Patreon and get in there. We've been having an interesting conversation over the last 2 weeks since the last Melanin chat of some of the things that have been going on in the bookish world. And honestly, you guys, I mean, it all comes back down to the same thing. But Jay Monet is here as well. I've been here for like 20 minutes. Look, May, I'm glad that you were here. I'm glad that you started.
I'm just saying you real early.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you're here because we missed you last week. And I know sometimes YouTube doesn't be sending you the notifications, which is honestly, it's so ghetto. I'm so sorry. But I'm glad that you're here, friend. Glad that you're here. Sorry, you guys.
Okay. I have my die, babe.
While you're here, go ahead and tap the like button because it doesn't hurt you and it helps us. So do that. And yeah, also Vina is here. Good morning. Welcome. So we are going to go ahead and get into this melanin spotlight. Are you ready, Audra?
Ready.
She's ready. All right. So y'all know how this works. I always make her go first. So have at it, ma'am. But this time I'm actually drinking my tea because I need it. So
don't say it, okay? Don't say it.
I know she's gonna lift it up. It's okay. It's fine. Live your best life.
This book is very interesting because it was published not too long ago posthumously. This is an author Diane Oliver, a Black woman, she died very tragically at the age of 22 in 1966, right when she was in her MFA program. She was in a motorcycle accident. Oh. But this came out, I don't know what the delay was. They found her works or whatever and put it out. The way Zora Neale Hurston has a new book coming out too that they found, and it's coming out 2025. Anyway, okay. So this one is called Neighbors and Other Stories. And Tayari Jones has given it her stamp of approval, and Disha Philyaw. So got some good stamps of approval here. So it says, in Neighbors and Other Stories, the late Diane Oliver writes of civil rights era domestic life, racial justice, and personal intimacies with such beautiful self-possession. Full of keen observation, crisp prose, and astute social commentary, this is a collection overflowing with complexities and vigor from a brilliant talent we lost much too soon. And I realize that this completely is like, the topics are probably what we're talking about today. Racial trauma, maybe. I haven't read it yet, but says, a remarkable talent far ahead of her time, Diane Oliver died in 1966 at the age of 22, leaving behind these crisp and often chilling tales that follow various characters as they navigate the day-to-day perils of Jim Crow America. In this first and only collection by a masterful storyteller finally taking her rightful place in the canon of 20th century African-American literature, Oliver's insightful stories reverberate into the present day. There's the nightmarish The Closet on the Top Floor, in which Winifred, the first Black student at her newly integrated college, starts to physically disappear. Mint Juleps Not Served Here, where a couple living deep in a forest with their son go to bloody lengths to protect him. Spiders Cry Without tears in which a couple, Meg and Walt, are confronted with prejudices and strains of interracial and extramarital love, and the high-tension titular story that follows a nervous older sister the night before her little brother is set to desegregate his school. These are incisive and intimate portraits of African American families in everyday moments of anxiety and crisis that look at how they use agency to navigate their predicaments. As much a social and historical document as it is a taut, engrossing collection, Neighbors is an exceptional literary feat from a crucial, once lost figure of letters. And I
Wow.
probably should have picked this book for this episode, but whatever. It
It's
is what it
fine.
is.
It's hey, there's a rhyme and a reason to everything, and it's gonna work out. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be wonderful.
Honestly, you were like, pick a book, and I was like, I have this book on the shelf that I haven't read yet, and it's kind of new. Let me go with that.
Hey,
So
that works. That works. So my spotlight
I
pick
just
for
want to
this week.
crawl under the table now and go away.
Don't it look, everything happens for a reason and it's on brand. It's on brand. But my spotlight pick for this week is I Think They Love You by Julian Winters. And a slight plug, if you have not seen the interview that I did with him, it is on the channel. It is one of my favorite interviews because he was incredibly honest about his journey. And he also touched on one of the things that we've talked about on the chat, which is his first book does not feature a black person as the main character. And so we talked about that and his publishing journey and traditional, and it was great. So this is his adult debut. And like I said, I Think They Love You. And the back of the book reads, I'm going to try to get through this without coughing out here. When Den's Carter's workaholic father and CEO of 24 Carter Gold, unexpectedly announces his retirement, the competition is on for who will become his successor. To convince his judgmental family members that Den's is capable of commitment, he impulsively lies about being in a serious relationship. Problem is, the last serious relationship he was in hung him high and dry after leaving the continent. Now, Dens needs to find a fake boyfriend to bring to family functions and seal the deal on the CEO position. To do so, he enlists the help of his best friend and roommate, Jamie, someone his family already accepts in their inner circle. But when his BFF is a no-show, Dens is forced to turn to the last person he wants to be in a pretend or any relationship with, Braylon, the man who broke his heart. Braylon's sudden reappearance in Denz's life turns everything upside down, but apparently he needs Denz's connections to the mayor to win his own promotion, and Denz is currently up a creek without a paddle. So they strike a deal. It's all business, but between the funny texts and the confusing kisses, soon enough, Denz is struggling to separate business from the affairs of his heart. And Julian Winters' I Think They Love You, sometimes fake dating your way to success can mean finding the second chance at love you needed all along. So, you guys know if you're interested in either of these books, there is a link down in the description box below. So, feel free to get into them however you see fit. And yeah, there are a couple of housekeeping things before we get deep into this discussion. One is that I am revitalizing my newsletter. So if you want to be a part of that, there's a link down in the description box below under Chelsea's links or whatever. You can sign up for my newsletter there. Much appreciated if you haven't already. If you have, send it to somebody who hasn't. Okay, thanks. We bully people into doing good things. Second thing, the Magic in the Melanin anthology, the links to submit to it and join the street team are still down in the description box below under relevant links, because we're also going to be talking about that today as well. So wanted to make that announcement at the beginning. And also, slight plug, if you haven't bought any of the merch from the Melanin Library, you should do that. Great. Okay.
I had that mug, and I got 2 hoodies.
Okay. You need to be using them on the Melanin chat, man.
You know what? You know I can't be up in this closet when it's 100-something degrees outside with no hoodie on.
But you can bring the cup in.
So,
you can fill it with ice.
I mean, I could turn off my camera and get the cup.
It's not that serious. It's not that serious. But just so you guys know, this cup is the 2024 cup for the Melanin Library. So it has Black authors on it, and there's going to be a new one for next year. So if you want the authors on this cup, you need to get it because the design is going to be changing in the future. So same thing with the hoodie. If you want these set of authors, you need to go ahead and get it because it will not last forever. Okay, glad we established that. But that being said, you guys, let's actually get to this topic for today. Also, shout out to TEB and Bianca who came in. Hello, good morning. Glad you guys could make it. So, as y'all can see from the title of the Melanin chat, right? We're talking about Black books and racial trauma. And y'all know that, I'm not gonna say y'all know, but I have pretty strong feelings about this for a myriad of reasons, right? But one of the reasons it kind of came to the forefront of my mind is because, as you guys know, Magic in the Melanin is an anthology that we are putting together. It is Black to the spine, as I like to say. Black authors, Black stories, Black characters. The artists that we're working with are Black. So it's just like everything about it is melanated, right? And one of the things that was kind of interesting, like in a good way, right? We got a lot of interest from authors on the internet who were just like, hey, we want to submit, which is like, in its own way, kind of mind-boggling, right? But one of the questions that we got in some of the submissions that we started getting were very much featuring racial trauma. And one of the things that are on very clearly stated in the submission guidelines is that the story must not feature racial trauma. And part of the reason that we said that, because a lot of people were like, well, does that mean it can't be included at all? Or what does that mean? Like, what are the parameters and guidelines for that? And it kind of hit us, like, as the editing team, like, oh, this isn't something that a lot of Black authors are necessarily familiar with, which is kind of mind boggling when you think about it, right? But it's just kind of like, it became apparent that one of the things that is so prevalent in Black fiction is talking about racism and overcoming it, or even when it's not, even when it's fiction, even when it's fantasy, right? There's still so much oppression based upon skin color or blood color or magic, or there's always some very huge divide. And it's like, it's so ingrained in us that it's like the things that really get spotlighted and talked about and become important books are ones that bring awareness to these things. And it's just like, it gets exhausting sometimes because it's just like we exist outside of our need to explain our oppression to the people who are oppressing us. And the whole purpose of Magic in the Melanin was to provide fantasy stories by Black authors where it's just like, these stories are for us. Like, I don't need to explain to any Black person macro or microaggressions or what they look like or how they feel, or that story is not for us, right? That story is for an outside gaze, the white gaze, if you follow me, if you keep with me for a moment. And so the idea that we are writing these stories where it's just like, no, we don't want that. Like, we are challenging the authors to be like, what story would you write if you were writing it for a Black reader? What story would you write if you did not have to center the white gaze and include all of your pain and hurt, or even weave it in as even like a small part? Because if you'll notice, one thing that I have kind of seen a pattern of is, there's this theme, right, of whenever like white readers specifically gets a book by a Black author that's touted as like Black boy joy or Black girl magic or what have you, right? It usually comes with, well, I couldn't relate to the main character. But when you have books where the main focal point is trauma, where the main focal point is this person is not like the rest of them, and they're having to deal with that and navigate with that, you generally don't get those kinds of comments. And it's just like, does no one else find that absolutely wild and crazy? And just like, this is the thing that they don't say that they can't relate to. And in my mind, right, follow me, and I could be completely off base here. And if I am, I'm open to hearing alternative opinions, right? But it's just like, is it that those stories aren't relatable simply because they can relate to not the character that's experiencing it, but being the person to inflict that kind of pain and damage on somebody else? Is that the thing that they understand? I don't know. I think there's more space for conversation, and just the question of like, why do black books in general, especially within traditional publishing, need to include some level of pain or racism in order for it to be perceived as good or important? You know, I would even argue that the books that are important are the ones that don't include it, because it's just like uh we exist without being put on display. Okay, well,
You know, I'm sorting through feelings here. Go ahead and finish what you're gonna say.
I was going to say, Vina said that the white people said they can't relate to our stories about racial trauma as well. And I was like, that's fair. I haven't seen them. So that's why I said I'm open to being corrected. So, yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm sorting through feelings here because I think this speaks to a lot of things. And while I'm very interested in reading this book
Mm-hmm.
because there's something, I don't know how to put this. Um there's something like when you know that other people are dealing with the same thing, there's something to reading it that makes you feel less alone.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we as black people, we know we're not alone. We know that we all deal with racism on some days extreme levels, some days microaggression level, and everything in between. But there's something that connects us all when you read about it. I also think that um, black people have suffered so much trauma that reading about it is almost a way of, it's almost like therapy.
Mm.
Because people go to some people go to therapy and talk about this kind of stuff. A lot of people still don't. So I think for some people, it's a form of therapy, of like talking it out without actually talking it out. Um, and then there's also the aspect of, when you talk about the gatekeepers, these are the kind of books that they let through because this is what they want to see us as. They always want to see us in struggle, in trauma, and not having joy. That is a very real thing, that people just have a problem seeing black people living their best damn lives and just having everyday problems in their stories.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a thing too. Um and I'm working through feelings because I want stories that are just stories for when I just want to decompress and not deal with it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like going on of it, like what a vacation would do for you. But then I also see a place for these books as well, because there have been times where throughout my life, especially growing up when I grew up
Mm-hmm.
in the 70s and 80s, where reading about it, like I said, was a form of therapy for me. It helped me to release it. And in some cases, it helped me to understand. Put my a torn here, because yeah, I absolutely say this isn't all that we are and this isn't all that we need. We need both, I think.
And I will say that I agree 100,000% with that, that we need both. So I want to be clear that, for what I'm referring to is just the overwhelming amount of racism that,
Hmm.
realistically speaking, it's more so the idea that you can't write anything other than racism. And I'm not saying that as like, it's not necessary, because I agree there is a time and a space and a place for those books, and they are necessary. I don't like to use the word important because I feel like that has a different connotation within the bookish community just in general, but they are necessary, right? And they do introduce conversation, right? And there needs to be a
Mm-hmm.
balance to these things. But I think my issue is that there is no balance. There is no equal between
Mm-hmm.
books that have racism and books that don't. It's just
Absolutely.
overwhelmingly every book. And I think
Mm-hmm.
even when you like, especially when you start getting into, oh, almost every popular, specifically the books that gain traction, popular middle grade book, and YA book and adult books, all those books deal with microaggressions and macroaggressions, and even children's books. One of the
Mm-hmm.
conversations that we have a lot in the after chat is that they're, especially Vina brings this up a lot, and I think she's talked about it on her channel as well, so slight plug to go check out her content if you haven't already. But she talks about how we need children's books that are more than just talking about loving yourself and your hair. Like, have Black children going to museums and going to aquariums and experiencing new things and dealing with big feelings, and all the other variety of children's books that you get, include them, but also, like, you need the hair, but you also need other aspects of it. And I feel like the fact that it's so heavily on hair is like, that in and of itself is like high key racial trauma. It's adults being coming
Mm-hmm.
from a generation where they weren't allowed to love themselves in the way that they looked, and were like forced to change it to adhere. And so they're writing these books for these kids, and it's like, yes, love your hair, love yourself. That is important. I'm never going to knock that. But there's also so many other things that children experience beyond that also need to be talked about and included. And there needs to
Mm-hmm.
be diversity and color in it, in color told from a person of color. Because I know in children's books it's really rampant, but you'll get stories about little Black boys and little Black girls that are written by white authors, because they're like, oh well, we need diversity in this space. And it's just like, y'all know how I feel about that, so I'm not going to get onto that topic, that rant. It was just one of those things where I feel like there is also a space for the conversation to be had of, why is it that for a lot of Black authors, specifically writing, young adult and adult fiction, because that's kind of where I exist, right? Who, for seemingly the perception is, it's almost impossible to get a lot of people to even fathom writing a book that does not include that. Because, and I say that from the perspective of having engaged with some authors who want to submit to the anthology, and they were just like, oh, well, can it be included at all, or what? And it's just the idea that even at the peak of creativity, giving all the freedom in the world, saying that we are creating this anthology to decenter the white gaze, like, we are centering the Black gaze, like, this is for us, by us, for us, nobody else. If anybody else picks it up and they enjoy it, great, they are not the target demographic. It's like, even then, it's like, but I still want to need to include this, even when we're saying, like, very specifically, that is not the kind of story that we're looking for. And I'm just kind of like, that is where my mind kind of becomes like, okay, so why do we feel like we have to include this? Why do we feel like we have to write this story? Because it's
And
one.
that's the point right there. It's because look at the society that we live in. We have to fight for our humanity every day. And so there's two things going on there. One is that you have Black people from my generation and older who are like seeing books with us in it without all that. It's like, wow.
Mhm.
Because growing up, for me, the Black books that I read, they all had that to some extent. There wasn't a book that was just a good ass story about a person. It just didn't happen. So you have those people that are writing books now that they're processing their trauma through writing the books. And you, when you look at the state of this country and what we're in, it's like, it's almost as if we don't feel okay to just be human. It's always human and this trauma. You know what I mean? And that's that's something that we have to overcome. And I think maybe your generation um doesn't doesn't have that hurdle to overcome in a sense because the climate that you came up in while you experienced racism, it maybe wasn't as extreme as my generation and the generation before me. So, you know, there's like a lot going on here. You know what I mean?
I agree that there's like levels to it and nuance to it. And I'm not gonna say that there's not. I think the perspective that I'm coming from though is just like even in those times though, there are moments where it's just like as a black person among other black people, you're not dealing with, you might be talking about it, you might be trying to find community and solace and things, but in generally speaking, you're not experiencing macro and microaggressions when you're a black person among other black people. And so I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to dismiss it or anything. I just think that, you know, in 2024 and going forward, right? I think the conversation needs to be had because there are people who need to talk about it and need to address it. But I also
Mm-hmm.
think there is a difference between including that in your art to process it and then including it in your art to profit off of it. And I also think
Mm-hmm.
there's a
That's
difference.
two big things. Yeah.
They're two completely different things, and I feel like when it's included in your art to process it, that's when you get things that are well done and nuanced. But
Mm-hmm.
like someone said in the chat, I don't remember who said it, but Roussel said it. All these stories read the same and they don't even do the conversations well, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
also an issue with including racism all the time because it's like the racism, I don't want to say it looks exactly the same because that's the nature of it, it's oppression, right? But it's also like there, if you're going to include something in order to bring awareness to it, you have to go in it full, like 10 toes down. You have to be like, this is the thing that we're going to address. And I feel like the conversations are so surface level, like, and it's just glossed over and it's not brought attention to because these things also have ripple
Mm-hmm.
effects. And this may be a controversial opinion, but I'm gonna say it anyway because y'all know who I am and how I deal with things. But I'm also like, I don't know if it's on the author because they don't have the skill to actually be talking about these things, or if it's because they've never actually experienced these things themselves because they're pulling from experiences of people around them and not necessarily of like things that they have experienced in order to get brownie
Mm-hmm.
points for being a black author, or if it's simply because they don't know how to have the conversations or they're shying away from having the conversations. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
goes on behind the scenes. It's just the fact that it's included, but for why? Because my thing is with any aspect of a book, if you can take it out and it changes absolutely nothing, that it didn't need to be included in the first place. So if you're going to have a character being racist to the main
Mm-hmm.
character, that needs that needs to have some implications. That needs to have some ripple effects. That needs to have meaning within the book. And if you're writing a horror, if you're writing a slasher, I feel like that person should go. I feel like if we're offing people at will, I don't know, why are we keeping the person who is racist just so that they can have redemption? The thing is, I feel like as much as I love Avatar: The Last Airbender, I feel like so many people have clung to this idea that every villain needs a redemption arc. Every person needs to have a chance to redeem themselves, and it's like that's not how it works. Some people are just terrible. Some people are
Mm-hmm.
not going to turn around. Some people are not going to change. Some people are going to hear facts and deny it. And you can't talk to, argue, reason with, find redeemable qualities in a person like that. And I feel like, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm personally at this point in my life, I'm more interested in reading stories that are for us. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
tired of not being the target demographic even when I'm being told that I am the target demographic, because it's like
Mm-hmm.
having this random person talk about this girl's hair, her skin, the way that she talks, her features. None of that is for me. None of that is to do anything for me. And it's just like, ugh. And it's okay. So you brought up Steven Universe, Darian, right? They're like that with their villains. But I will also say that none of the villains in Steven Universe were so bad that they were irredeemable. And that's the thing. And it's just like people, I think people forget when it comes to redemption arcs, there's usually some level of I was ingrained in this, but I've always been outside of it. Because like with Zuko, right? I think people forget that he was banished for most of his formative years. Like by the time he had a personality, he was no longer a part of the Fire Nation for most of it, and he spent that entire time traveling the world. So yeah, he had like teenage angst and anger and stuff, but like he wasn't being indoctrinated. He was literally removed from the indoctrination of the Fire Nation, which is he was with someone who had already freed, mentally been freed from that, and was teaching him some, actively teaching him something better. And that's why Zuko was allowed to have a redemption arc, because he was never fully in it. Um he wasn't part of the he wasn't like he wasn't the Fire Lord. He wasn't even the Crown Prince at that point. He had been disowned. Um, Wait, can you guys not hear me?
I
Lost
can hear
after.
you, but it's like a funky kind of reverberation thing going on.
This is about to be my 13th reason why today. Hold on. Okay, is it better?
Keep talking.
Okay, I'm talking. Is this better, you guys? I unplugged
Yeah,
and replugged my
that's better.
mic, so hopefully
Hmm.
this is working
That's
now.
better. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, I don't understand how hard this morning has been trying me. Like, I'm trying to remember that I'm a saved woman, but sometimes, you know, things be taking you there. Things be taking you there.
Oh. Yeah, well, y'all lost me at Steven Universe. I have no idea what that is. I don't know who Zuko is.
We're not gonna talk. Dude,
Is
we're
that is that anime or something?
no. Both of those are actually just cartoons on Cartoon Network. um,
Okay.
Wait, no. Steven Universe is Cartoon Network. Zuko is from Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's Nickelodeon.
Okay.
But all you need to know is that um, they just have villains that get turned around into being allies. You know,
Okay.
and yeah, it's just I feel like so many books try to do that with racist characters, and it's just like that's not how that works. Only because, and maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I am the problem, right? But I'm also like the people who were actively and intentionally racist toward me in my life. I don't care if I don't care. I don't care what you
Right.
go through. I don't care if you see the light. I don't care if a tree falls on you and you're like paralyzed from the waist down, and you go through therapy and you're like, "Oh my god, I saw the light because now I understand what this is like. I'm so sorry." I accept your apology, but also get away from me and never speak to me or my family again. Thanks so much.
And how about I'm not going to accept your apology because you shouldn't have been at in the first place.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know. We have to live
maybe
with.
that's just that me. They come up to me, I'll be like, that's kind of karma for you there, isn't it, buddy?
Yeah, I think there are books that are like they refuse to let characters live with the consequences of their actions, especially in
Hmm.
YA. And it's just like, nah, homie, you made this bet, now lie in it. That's it. That's it. And it's an interesting conversation, I think. And I'm just I'm with TB. I'm over villain redemption arcs. It worked for Zuko, but it doesn't work for everyone. Let villains be villains. And I feel like that also leads into the conversation of why so many people have a hard time accepting morally great characters, especially when they are black women, because they don't know how to let villains be villains, and they think that everybody needs to be striving for this perfect goal of preset morality, and when they're not, they are a problem. But even then, I feel like that standard is only applied when the character is black, because you can have all of these I'm not gonna say white characters, but just non-black characters who get to do all these things and test the boundaries of what between right and wrong, and nobody bats an eye, nobody says anything. But let it be a black woman who is angry for perfectly good reasons, and then it's just like, oh nope, angry black woman. And it's just like, wait, nuance. There's nuance here. There's thought processes to be had, or whatever. But that's a whole other conversation. Um, and also Ben said to like the stream, so like the stream. I didn't say it. Ben said it. So
Already done.
but also something else that I kind of wanted to point out while we're talking about black books and racial trauma, especially, the idea of characters sitting with their consequences. There's this book that came out recently. The White Guy Dies First, right? It's an anthology. It's a black horror anthology. And I haven't read it. Y'all know I haven't read it. I don't even be reading books like that. So I don't feel like I need to say that, but just for the purposes of disclaimer, I haven't read it, right? But someone that I follow, a Twitter mutual, did read it and talked about it. They left a review as well. I'm not going to post it here on the public chat, but if you're in the after chat, I did post a screenshot of it. So if you want to read it, you can get it there. Mostly because you can't link to a specific review on Goodreads. You have to just search for it. And there are a lot of reviews. But point is, sign up for the Patreon, get into the after chat. You can see the screenshot. There we go. But in her review, she was talking about how she was disappointed with the anthology because, she said that she went into it hoping that the book itself would flip over the trope of the black person dies first, right? To like acknowledge it, play with it, and like really give, I guess, the horror girly something to work with, to latch on to enjoy. And it's okay. The title alone made me not interested in reading it. That's crazy. That's crazy because I feel like for a lot of people, they wanted to read it because of the title. Like I think that was the intention behind titling it what they did. But I've also heard people with that exact same take. So I think it's interesting. But the point of what I was trying to say though was that she brought up the fact that in the anthology, right? Basically the white guy dies first, but it was only after he had proven to be a racist, to proven to be a bad person, right? Almost as if giving reason and permission to kill off this character or whatever. And I found that interesting because she also pointed out that that's not how it works in the black horror trope. The black person dies first simply because the black person is black. Like that's what it is. Their character never plays a factor in it, right? And so the idea that white characters are given all of this great like grace and thought and like, oh well, if we're going to kill them off, they need to have a good reason, they need to be a bad person, they need to do X, Y, and Z. And it's just like black characters don't, generally speaking, they don't get that kind of grace and that kind of nuance. And even then it's just like, what does that have to do in the horror trope? And it's just like, it feels like one of those things that was included just to be included in order to like be like, oh, we don't, as black authors, we're putting out this anthology where the white characters are dying first, but we don't want you to collectively hate us, so we need to prove to you that these characters were bad and that we don't see all people. I don't know, it just feels a little weird to me. It just feels a little weird because it's just like, if you're going to play with a trope like that, why not go full force into it and just lean into it and let it be what it is? And the people who get it, and the people who don't. And I feel like we live in an era where everything has to be for everybody. And even when it's not for you, it needs to be explained why it's not for you. And somebody needs to tell you that it's not for you. And I don't know. I feel like we need to bring back the age of critical thinking. That would be nice. That would be enjoyable. And I don't know, maybe I'll have a different opinion once, Magic and the Melanin is actually out in the world. But I'm also like, as long as black people love it, I'm good. That's what we're doing this for. So
Right.
we'll see. I don't know. I think the whole conversation is wild. The constant mismarketing in the community immediately makes me skeptical of title summaries and marketing in general. Honestly, I'm the type of person where I have to read the back of the book at this point because for whatever reason, the back of the book has become passe. Nobody ever talks about what's actually in the book. It's just mood boards and arrows and vibes. And I'm gonna be honest, y'all want my unpopular opinion? I hate mood boards. I don't really like mood boards. I don't give a flying flip about how this picture made you feel to write the book. What, I don't know what the purpose of a mood board is, but I also know that I'm an anomaly because I don't create playlists. I don't create mood boards. I'm just like, if I want to write a story, I'm like, I start working on like characters. I start working on like plot ideas. I start working on events. Like, I don't start with an image or like a soundtrack. I don't know. That's just me though. I could be different, but because I am who I am, I'm like, I also don't really care about the other stuff that people put together. I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to get from this. I am confusion. I am lost. Unless it's like just a really impressive mood board. I'm just like, what do you okay, I love that you have a picture of these people holding hands. Is it a romance? Is that what I'm like? I feel like it's a bingo game, like a really confusing game of internet charades. That's how I feel. But, you know, I don't know. Just tell me what the book is about. Tell me what happens. It's like, if you have vampires, cool. What kind of vampires? Because at this point, do they sparkle in the light or do they eat people? I just need to know what type of vampires we're dealing with. You know? It's like, if you say you have werewolves, are we talking about like an alpha pack or whatever where she's got two mates? Or are we talking about like regular ass werewolves? Like, where are we going? Where there's a spectrum of these things. I just need to know where we land. So you just telling me there are vampires and werewolves? Do they hate each other? Are they best friends? I need context. You know? And I feel like
The details.
like I need to understand what I'm getting into, because these things don't make me want to buy the book. And I don't know who told somebody that this was good marketing. It's really bad marketing. Like, especially with books as expensive as they are, babes, I'm going to need snippets of the inside of the book. Okay. I'm going to need intentionality. I'm going to need motivations. I need a character breakdown, actually. Okay. That's what I need. If you're going to commission artwork, I want like a manga panel that you get where it's like, it's got the character. I want their name. I want their birthday. I want their blood type. I want their personality traits. I want their strengths. I want their weaknesses. I want their superpowers. I want the rundown of who I'm going to be linked with for the next 400 pages. Like, give me something. Just stop giving me, oh, fake dating. Okay. That's a trope. What? Huh? What am I supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to do with that? Like, is it like fake dating and it's like two serial killers who are fake dating because they're trying to kill each other? Because that could be interesting. I might be interested in that. But if it's fake dating, like, oh my God, I have to go to my ex's wedding. Bruh, hard pass. Hard pass. Because why are you going to your ex's wedding in the first place? I would just like to understand the logic behind that. You know? It's just, Oh, and the music playlists include a bunch of Billie Eilish and Taylor Swift songs. Yeah. Yeah. Can I tell y'all a secret? It's not even a secret. It's just a fact. I don't actually like Billie Eilish. I don't. Like, I don't like any of their music. I'm just kind of like, okay, I know that people do, but and it's not even like a hater type thing, because y'all know I have big hater energy when I want to. It's just like, I'm just genuinely like a solid, like on a scale of like 1 to 10, I'm at like a solid 0. I just legitimately do not care at all. At all. And so people are like, oh my God, because fun fact, Linktree had this thing when I guess they dropped their album or whatever, and they were like, hey, get this Billie Eilish theme. I was like, absolutely not. What? Why would you even put this in my face? Go away. So yeah, that's just me. Yeah. And Chelsea hating on all typical marketing practices of today's age.
It is. It really is.
I am, because they don't work.
But I do think that the internet has made people lazy as far as doing marketing. You know, they see what everybody else is doing, they copy it for their book, and then that's it. You know, when I sound old when I was a kid, you know, but okay. When I was a kid, there was no internet. Okay, and you know, you had to make the book cover that was your only chance to grab somebody, was with the book cover, and the back was the book summary. It told you what the story was about without giving stuff away. And it made you, it gave you enough to be like, what the hell, and buy the book. And the inside was like, the back was for the author, and then the inside front was, usually the same thing, like what the book was about, but the back was like, this is where I read my summaries, and the summaries were stronger, and the book covers were stronger, because you had one chance. Somebody picked up the book, and if they didn't grab them, that's it. But with the internet, it just makes people lazy, because it just,
Nah. You know what? As someone who is super introverted, I'm even gonna blame the internet for this. I just think that people don't practice skill. I don't think it's the internet. I will say this. I will credit the internet in that things move faster. And so everybody feels like they have to have the next greatest thing, and everybody is like, how do I put it? It's like a 5-star chef trying to work at McDonald's, right? Like, you're not utilizing your skills, and it's okay if you need to take time. If you need to be in the kitchen for 2 hours working on this, it's fine if you can't be dropping fries every 2 minutes. That's cool. That's fine. But I feel like everybody's just trying to be fast, and nobody's trying to be good. And you can only appreciate McDonald's when you have the ability to go to a sit down restaurant. But if that's all you've got, it's like, Brett, I don't want any more fries out of a window. Like, I'm sick of it. And I feel like that's the era that we're in, where everybody's just like, fast, fast, fast. It's not about being good, because I think the issue is, the reason why summaries aren't strong is because I firmly believe that they're not actually teaching the anatomy of a book in school anymore. Because when I was in school, right, well, back in my day, right, when I was in school, we had a teacher who was like, hey, we had the librarian, and she was like, this is how you decide if you like a book. So you're not just picking up random books from the library and taking them home. Like, this is how you, I don't know, flip through it. Like, you look at the front and you read the back of the book, and then you flip to a random page and you read it, and you see if you like it, and if you do, then you'll probably like the rest of the book. And she said, flip to somewhere in the middle of the book, because that's where you're going to spend most of your time, in the middle of the book. So she was like, that's how you pick out a book. But I feel like that is a lost art, especially since most people buy their books online. The look inside feature is only going to give you the start of the book, which is cool, but so many people harp on getting a good start to their book that they don't know how to have a good rest of the book, essentially. And they're trying, because the rest of their book is so weak and nothing happens, and they can't tell you what happens even though they wrote it. They're like, oh, but it's going to be so fun, and all they have is vibes, because that's all they wrote into the book was vibes. And then they get mad when people don't love it, and I'm just like, but you could have been better. You could have been better. You had time. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's crazy. But I think the biggest thing for me, honestly, and I say this also as like an indie author whenever I'm talking to like just people in general, the biggest tell for me that these books aren't actually good is the fact that a year later no one's still talking about them. And I feel like the biggest marketing that you can get is word of mouth. So you're telling me that you are a bestseller and nobody's going back to like read your first book again? No one's talking about your first book. Everybody forgot that you had previous books outside of the one that you're actively promoting. You always feel like a debut author on the internet, because literally no one's talking about your backlog. What that tells me is that your pen is not fire. It's probably kind of rotten, and they just kind of like you as a person, and you're being hyped up and you're being pushed by a system that wants you to be successful. It wants to be like, oh, specifically, look at this Black woman who is writing racially ambiguous characters, but we have a fully dark-skinned character on the cover to confuse you. Yay! And it's just like, cool, love that for you. Get your bag, sweetie. But also, the best marketing is always going to be word of mouth. And if no one's talking about your book, then no one's talking about your book. And I feel like that's enough for me to understand that book is probably not for me, personally.
Mm-hmm.
Personally.
Got two really good comments. Ben said, when marketing, I feel like you should be showcasing the quality of what's inside the book. Most people are just comparing to other books and naming tropes. And exactly. And one, what if I don't like the trope? And two, what if I don't like the book that you're comparing it to? Then you just lost me completely, and it might be a good story. But because you did that, I'm like, nope. Okay, like somebody says, it's like The Great Gatsby, but black. Like, well, I didn't like The Great Gatsby, so guess what? I'm not reading this either.
If you're on the
Okay?
after chat, you know exactly what book I'm thinking about, and I'm not going to say it because I have no beef with this author in real life, and I wish them nothing but success. I just will not be contributing to it. But there is another
Right.
book that is very
Right.
specifically like this thing that nobody asked for meets this thing that nobody asked for, but make it black, and it's just like, okay, good
Right.
luck with
Right.
that.
Right.
But
And then
no,
Russell Reed says, I think some of the authors are doing trope marketing because one, they don't know how to make the book sound interesting on the back, or two, they realize the actual story is weak and tropes are easy. Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Saying.
I feel like the crux of the problem is that we have an era of authors who are not actually good at what they do, who don't want to be authors. They want to be book influencers in the author space.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a completely different goal and trajectory than someone who's like, I want to write good books. And
Mm-hmm.
it's annoying. It's irritating because it's just like, there are some really big authors, popular authors, where I'm like, bruh, somebody could be like, hey, I would give you $200 right now to go read this person's book. And I was like, you could keep it. You could keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Because no. What? No. What? This author? This book?
Right.
Are you sure? I don't know. I hated the first two. Why would I read the third one? I'm confused. I'm
Mm-hmm.
lost. What?
Yeah,
Anyway.
but it's like you said, everything is because of the and see, here's me being old again. Because the internet, everything is so fast, everything is so instant, and we, like you said, people have lost the art of writing a good book. People have lost they don't take time to develop their skill because they want to hurry up, they want to get it out, and then they want to go on to the next one. It's just like, you know when I was a kid, I don't remember books coming out like that all the time. It was like
Ooh.
you had that came out, but they didn't come out with the frequency that they do now. And, part of that is because you have the on demand digital printing and all that other kind of stuff. And like I said, you have the internet, so things go fast. Or maybe they did come out, but I didn't notice it because the technology wasn't in place to know how many books were coming out. I went to the library and there were new books and, that kind of thing. But everything is so fast nowadays. People don't take their time with stuff. And,
I'm going
like
to
Rose said in the chat, that there's not, the skill isn't there anymore.
I'm going to be controversial and say that um as someone who appreciates the craft, if you can drop a book every 3 months, it's probably not a book worth reading every 3 months. Because for a lot of these authors, it's the same book with a different skin. And it's just like, for romance authors, I give a little bit of grace because at the end of the day, a romance is very formulaic. Romance is extremely formulaic, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I appreciate that. So please know that with the exception of romance authors, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about everybody else, right? If you could drop a fantasy novel, like a full-blown fantasy novel every 3 months, you're not doing fantasy right. You're just not. If you can drop a horror novel every month, you're not doing it right. You either your pen, your actual writing style, your verbiage, your word choice, that's not as strong as it could be. Your plot is redundant, probably has a bunch of holes in it. Your characters are weak. Either, and I'm not saying that all have to apply. I'm just saying that something probably applies, right? Because 30 days, 30 days is not enough to hone your craft. It's not. And the era prior to the internet, it's like nobody was dropping a book every month. Like, are y'all insane? Are y'all crazy?
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why the process is slow for publishing. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, trap publishing is just slow. No, you realize that when it's done correctly. And I'm saying done correctly with that caveat because it's not always done correctly. Sometimes it's just slow to like punish authors, right? But a lot of times the intention for it being slow was that it was supposed to go through multiple rounds of edits. That's why you had this idea that's prevailed to today that traditionally published books are better than self-published ones because it took time. It took time and it took revisions. And I feel like people are
Mm-hmm.
skipping over the revisional part of writing where they're just like, oh, I'm done because NaNoWriMo exists. It's like, oh, I wrote my book during NaNoWriMo and so it's ready to go out in February. Bruh. No, no, that's generally not how it's supposed to work. If you write what is it? What is it that you have to write, like 70 or 80,000 words in 30 days? That's cool, but it's also like you should probably reread that and rework some things and make it stronger. And I just feel like the revision part of writing is getting lost because people are like, oh, it's so fast. And with AI coming out, it's like, at least it's better than the AI. And it's just like, okay, cool. But like, this is art. It's supposed to be good. But then people look at authors who have like careers, right? Like Beverly Jenkins always comes up. And it's just like, but y'all realize that she's been writing good books for a long time. Like, when most people, when they think of Beverly Jenkins, they're like, oh, she is a good writer, right? Like they've read multiple books and they're like, oh, each book that I have picked up by her has come through. I might like some more than others, right? But none of them were just straight up garbage. And it's just like, I feel like authors in this era don't think about that. They don't think about having a career. They don't think about what it means to be like, you realize that if you do this right, you're going to be here for most of your adult life. Do we not want to make a good impression? And I don't know, in my mind, I never just want to be like, I never want you guys to go read my earlier works because they weren't good, right? It's like, yeah, I'm hoping to get better at my writing, but it's never like, oh, I'm just putting out garbage just so I can put something out. There's a reason why I'm not publishing a book this year. It's because I'm still working on it. Could I have just finished it and be like, okay, it's done, let's go? Sure. But what will be the purpose of that if I'm going to look at it in a month, or I can look at it right now while I'm writing it and be like, well, this could be better, but this is good enough. And I feel like you don't have enough people who are like, I'm trying to be the best. I'm trying to be, follow me if you will, the best there ever was, you know? I don't know. I think it's a lot of people who just don't appreciate the craft and who aren't trying to get better and just, they got weak pens and they don't care because they're like, I want to be famous. They're like, I don't want to be good. I just want to be famous. And it's just like, girl, if you were just better, you would be famous. You realize that these are like, they're not mutually exclusive, right? Like, I mean, you can be famous and write a book, but those books don't necessarily sell. You could be famous for writing books, but that means you have to be good. I don't know. You have to pick a struggle. Do something else and then write a book, or be good at what you do. But anyway,
exactly.
That's my 2 cents.
Coming up on the hour.
Yeah. So this is your reminder to sign up for the after chat, which is patreon.com/Melanin. $5 gets you in, and it supports the channel, it supports the Melanin Library, and it supports the content that we create. So get into it. If you get in it, like it, stay. If you don't, fine, stay for a month, bounce, we understand, whatever. But yeah, $5 gets you into the chat. And there's something else I was gonna say. Oh, sign up for the newsletter. Check out the anthology if you want to submit. It's down in the description box below. And yeah, a couple of comments before we head out. Oh, tap the like button if you haven't already, please. Thank you. Too many authors have the what about isms, but the white folks get to be mediocre, so why can't I? Here's the thing. I'm going to say this and we're going to close out. I do not support mediocrity by anyone. Okay? If you write a mediocre book, I'm not going to buy it. And if I buy it and it's bad, I'm going to drag you on the internet because you deserve. You deserve, because how dare you make me spend $30 on a book that you knew wasn't good? How dare? I ain't never going to buy another book from you again. And I'm going to tell everybody I know not to buy nothing from you. Okay? Like, I feel like these authors be shooting themselves in the foot, being like, we should be able to be mediocre. Babes, I hate to break it to you, you're already there. You're already there. I think we should be rooting to be exceptional. I think everybody should be rooting to be exceptional. Honestly, I just think the goal is not for Black people to be mediocre. I think it's for all authors to be measured by the same measuring stick. That's the goal.
Ooh, that's the word right there.
Yeah.
That's the word right there, Chelsea. Damn, drop the mic in the show.
But that is it, you guys. Thanks so much for being here. Catch us in the after chat. And until next time, you guys, I hope your books are interesting. I hope your days are lovely and your books are interesting.
And not mediocre.
And not mediocre.